Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be using an acrylic skin. I've had several of my viewers ask me, hey, what can you do with those acrylic skins? They're fun, but what do you do? And I'm sharing with you today how you can build an art journal page with them. The entire background is one big acrylic skin, and then the page just gets built right on top of it. An acrylic skin is basically paint that doesn't have a canvas or paper or anything behind it. Normally you paint on something, but with a skin, you actually peel it up from the surface and you've got this wonderful piece of color, this skin of paint. And the way that I made the one that you're seeing here was through paint pouring. Yeah, that paint that runs over the side, it never has to be wasted. You can use those to create the skins. That's why I put a Teflon mat in my box that catches the drips when I'm paint pouring, because one, it contains the mess, and two, it makes it so that it'll release up those skins completely. Well, what is that lump underneath the skin? That's actually my art journal under there, and I'm trying to decide which part of the pattern I want to put on the page. I really like that big bit of pinky purpley stuff there, so I'm definitely going to put some of that in there. The edges aren't perfectly even, but that's what scissors are for, right? Well, okay. It's not going to make this perfectly even, but it's going to make it a lot more even. Now, after I get this glued on, 3 of the sides will be super easy to trim up. The one side that'll be tough to trim up after I glue it on is the one that's near the binding. So that's the one I'm focusing on, making sure that I've got it where I want it. Then it's time to glue it down. I'm going to bring in some gel medium and just spread it all over the page. If you're wise, you will get it all the way to the edges. And even though I speak these words, it doesn't mean I actually practice it. There always seems to be one little area on an edge that I'm not getting enough glue on. And when that happens, I just go back and add a little bit more to it. All right, so I've got this positioned on here and I wasn't happy with it at all. So I just lifted it back up. That's one of the nice things about using gel medium to do this, is you've got a little bit of workable time so that you can reposition it if you need to. Another perk of using a paint skin for this is they are super easy to cut with scissors. So I'm going to turn the journal page open here, and I'm simply going to trim it right up along the edges. The piece that I'm cutting off, it's pretty big, so that means I can use it for something else. It's almost enough to cover an entire other art journal page. Now these little bits that I'm going to do here just to even up the edges, those little bits I'm probably not going to keep, but the bigger piece I am. One of the perks of making a skin through paint pouring is there ends up with this very organic flow of the paint happening. There are different areas and pockets of color, almost like little currents of the rainbow running here and there. Now, since this is such a soft color, it's hard to see where some of those lines are. So that's why I brought out the Sharpie marker here, and I'm simply just tracing around things. By tracing around what's already there, it takes the pressure off of any kind of big thinking or incredible skill. I am literally just tracing along things. And I'm not even tracing that accurately. It's not like I have to stay exactly on a line anywhere. I am using a Sharpie marker, and you might notice that every now and then I kind of draw with the marker off on the paper off to the side. The reason why I do that is this is still paint. And if you've ever written over paint, even when it's dry, there's a little bit of residue that can be picked up by the nib of the pen. I can tell when it's starting to do that because the pen doesn't flow as easily, it's not as vibrant. Basically, I'm kind of clogging up the tip a little bit. But if I write off on the paper, that wipes off any of that residue from the tip of it, and then I can go back to drawing. This is true if you're writing on top of a paint skin, if you are writing on top of some paint you've put on an art journal page, if it's paint on a canvas. Any dried paint in just about any application can sometimes clog up a felt tip marker. That's why I like using a regular Sharpie, because it's got enough of a point to it, but it's also thick enough that it's hard to clog up. We've got a background, we've got some pattern. Now it's time to bring in some more layers. I'm going to bring in some brighter colors to put on top of this. I'm basically filling this in like it's a coloring book. As I'm doing this, I'm not doing a precise job staying within the lines. And the cool part is I don't have to. One, absolutely because there aren't any musts or shoulds here when art journaling, but the other reason is there's a really easy way to fix it. It's almost like a little undo button. If I take a damp Q-tip and I wipe it along any of the edges where I've gone over the line right away, it just completely erases it up, cleans it right up. And the Q-tips or cotton swabs that I'm using are the ones that are for cosmetics, so they have that nice little point on them. Earlier in the video, I said that I made this when I was doing some paint pouring. The paint that runs over the side, that kind of thing, and gets collected up in the box, that's what made this skin. So are you wondering if this skin looks like the painting that I poured? The answer is not at all. They don't look anything alike. And the reason for that in this case is because it was 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 canvases that I did that collected up in the bottom of the box that became this one skin. If you're curious about doing paint pouring, I've got a video that covers all the basics for making that very first pour. But what if you want to go more in depth? What if you want to really know about the different pouring mediums and what they'll do? If you want to know how to get that super glass finish to something? If you want to know exactly how to mix up paint and pouring medium every single time to just the right ratio that you want, without any measuring, without eyeballing it? Those are just some of the things in the 15-lesson online workshop that I've created called Paint Pouring Fundamentals. There are a couple of bonuses with it when you get registered, but my favorite of the bonuses is you get to see my husband, who is not a master paint pourer, make a poured canvas live for you. Have you noticed how much the look of the acrylic skin has changed since I've added the bright colors to it? Having those wonderful muted colors in the background really makes those bright colors pop and the pattern stand out. I'm just about finished adding color to this, so once I've got it all on there, then I'm going to move on to getting some journaling on here. The paint's still wet, so if I start to write wherever there's wet paint, guess what it's going to do to that pen? It is going to completely ruin it in no time flat. Definitely want paint to be dry when I write over it, but I also didn't feel like waiting to do my journaling, so I decided to do the journaling in the spaces where there wasn't wet paint. And remember, as you're writing on the paint, even when it's completely dry, if your pen feels like it's starting to dry up unexpectedly or it's getting hard to write across it, you want to just write off on a piece of paper to remove that little bit of residue that can get on the tip of the pen even from dried paint. That'll keep your Sharpies lasting a very long time when you do this. One of the questions that I get frequently when I'm doing journaling like this is people ask me, am I writing real words? And the answer is yes, I am writing real words. They're real things that I'm thinking. However, I'm not writing very legibly. If you're thinking you can't read my writing, you are right on track with that because I can't read it either. One of the really nice things about doing scribble journaling is I don't have to worry about spelling because I'm a terrible speller and that gets in the way of my play if I'm worried about how to spell a word correctly. So that's a big reason why I do a lot of scribble journaling. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to give paint pouring a try, check out my online workshop, Paint Pouring Fundamentals. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.